And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Hello guys, welcome to my channel, and in this episode I'm going to talk about, it's something that I'm compelled in my spirit to talk about, and it's all the connections in reality that pretty much support the biblical narrative. And you either have, even though this society, the mainstream society, promotes an atheistic, nihilistic point of view, with no God and no point, that's essentially a deception, because there are two pretty much ultimate truths. Well, there are two choices, and one of them is the ultimate truth. And it's either that you can believe in that you and everyone are gods, are God/gods, that everything and is the universe and everything is an infinite cycle, and everything is God, and everything is just an infinite cycle of birth, life, and death, and reincarnation. Or you can believe that God is separate from man, that there's an absolute beginning and an absolute end to time, like a beginning to time and an end of time, and that we will be judged for all our past deeds and have a chance to an eternal afterlife. So this whole everything I talk about is pretty much a sum of all my life's personal investigating, and God has guided me to many sources to piece this all together. I also it's not just like my own work. Of course, I'm many other people I've looked at have helped me piece this whole thing together. And let's see, a reminder that everything is connected. There are no such things coincidences. What goes up must come down. I'll talk about that later. Every culture is right about reality in one way or another. There is one absolute truth, and I'll talk about it here. Okay, so I'm pretty much gonna talk about okay, so basically we're gonna talk about how I'm going to give a quick summary of history, and we're going to connect things together, and we're going to look at for symbolism. And I believe everything to be spiritual. It's not just like the physical realm. It's a spiritual, everything's spiritual. There's things that we can't see, but everything is connected in a way, but not in the way that the mainstream teaches. And basically the news and the mainstream tell lies, and the movies tell truth, and some truth, and basically this whole world is a giant pyramid scheme, and every government is working together, and there's essentially a cult that runs the world, and they have different names and different organizations, like different secret societies. You can call them, well, their joke name is the Illuminati, but they have many, many different names. But they're all essentially doing rituals, and they're all controlled by dark forces, because this is a spiritual war. And Satan is real, but he tricked everyone. He tricked humanity to believe that he's not a real entity, but he's a real entity that the elites summon. And he gives power to people who sell out and do his rituals, and they actually believe that he's actually good and he's actually freeing humanity, and that the evil god of above is controlling. But we're going to look through patterns and look for the same patterns, such as, I mean, there's a bunch of patterns, but one of them is going to be, it's kind of interesting that I just searched for history and we see the Greeks here, but we're going to look for spirals. And remember, everything is connected. Everything is connected. The world has been run by basically royal families and Freemasons. We're just going to call them Freemasons, even though they could be called the Jesuit order or the Rosicrucians. There's a bunch of names, but basically, the world is controlled by billionaires and trillionaire families. The Rothschilds are notably a very well-known name. It's a very notable name. They're probably one of the biggest names, but there could be families of names that we don't know about that maybe are so powerful that their names are just. I guess there are universal laws, such as the truth must be, like, the devil has to tell his plan, and many evil people have to pretty much tell their plan, or it's the truth sometimes slips out of the mouth, right? Slips through their lips. Sometimes people just feel so guilty, but basically you can only bury it, but you can't destroy the truth. So we see here, you can research these things on your own, but these are all things that connected, and these are all powers that Satan uses to control this matrix. But we got the Rothschilds, Community of 300, which we've even heard of this in I think I've heard of this in like Metal Gear Solid. Like 300 people, 300 men or something. The Jesuit order, the Illuminati, the Freemasons. Actually, that game told a lot of truth. But basically, these people, I talk about it a lot, but I believe that in the biblical history, but these guys use all the media and education system, and they rewrote history to teach a false narrative because they don't want you to know the truth. But essentially, these are they have like trillions of dollars. They have unlimited money because these people are the royal families who have been conquering from the beginning of time, millennia, right? So basically, they have all the hidden treasures from history. They have control of all the banks. They can print infinite money. You know what I mean? So wealth is not really an issue to them. It's just about controlling the mind. But pretty much it's like a big show. The news, they act like, oh, we're all competing against one another. Every country's, but if you notice that the countries beside one another, they're always competing, like talking trash to one another. Secretly, they're competing with one another. Sports, you know what I mean? But there's some drama, right? But it's all but by design. If you look at even the way that, like, I'm good at noticing patterns, and I've looked at this for my whole life. And if you even notice that, like, how countries are even arranged, you have developed nations, and then you have developing nations all surrounding them. But all the developed nations, they're not in like one corner of the world. They're all like scattered because they want to be beside poor countries to build animosity, envy, and to get these countries to yearn, to give up their religion and ancestral roots, to chase after material and wealth, and basically destroy their culture from within. Because if you look at America, I mean, our country fell apart a long time ago, and it's just a corporation now, but basically everyone everything's backwards, and basically these people, they believe, actually they're in a secret. These people, I'll tell you their beliefs, but they basically think they're doing good. They basically believe they're actually doing good, but they're being deceived. But we're gonna look for symbols. So all-seeing eye is obviously one of them. The Eye of Horus. But pyramids, triangles, lightning. This is a symbol for Lucifer as he fell from lightning from heaven. But actually, we try not to call him that. We call him Satan because I think it's actually not even allowed to call him that. But we're also looking for spirals. Anything with spirals, maybe even this stuff, pedophile symbols. You can see that there's even, this is how these pedophiles, these people in the world, they're all connected, and they all do the things they do because they believe in a certain philosophy. And I'm going to talk about that through the video, but it's a huge hidden cult, and it's a huge conspiracy, and it's so big that it's hard for people to actually grasp. But basically, they use the symbols to communicate, and us normal people are not trained. But we see, even here, this is funny. Not funny like haha, but funny how they try to cover up how, look, Disney, I talked about how they're evil and they're connected with pedophiles. And they're connected with propaganda to brainwash the kids. But we see them hiding the pedophile symbol right on this diaper for children. But anyway, we're going to look for spirals, such stuff like that. Because spirals symbolize, and also the black and white. Black and white symbolism. So these people basically believe in, and also numerology. We're going to get into numerology too, but we're looking for all these connections. And I know it sounds difficult to comprehend right now, but they believe that this whole world is a giant construct and that we're trapped, because they believe that they know that we're in an enclosed realm and we can't leave. We're actually in a stationary enclosed realm. They know this, and the Freemasons know this. And you can see them all here, all using their secret hand signs to show their hidden hand. You know, don't let the left hand know what the right hand's doing, right? Or right hand know what the left is, whatever the hell it is. But they're hiding, to show they're hiding secrets, and they're in the brotherhood. But remember people, just remember these things I'm showing you guys. But basically, it's pretty obvious once you start learning and seeing, you start realizing you can't get above a certain level without being part of this cult now, because it's actually that big right now. But basically, all I can do is just try to talk, spread the truth about the biblical truth and how it's actually Jesus Christ, and actually how these guys have it wrong, and I'll explain it. Hopefully, I can convince some of these guys, but. And we'll explain why and where their beliefs even came, because I don't even think these guys know. They just kind of go, because these guys pretty much are part of a cult, and this cult is controlled by Satan and dark forces who they keep knowledge secret, and then basically they withhold this information from the public and keep it in the shadows behind closed doors, and give it to people in little pieces, only if you submit to them and do their rituals and do their work, their great work as they call it. But God in the Bible and in through Jesus Christ, He gives wisdom and knowledge openly, and to those who ask and seeketh with an open heart, genuine open heart. So they're all deceived and blind, but they believe that that God is dualistic, and He created this realm, and that He's everything, and that we are pieces of Him. But He's like almost forgotten who He is, or it's almost like He's forgotten memory, as the Buddhists say. And this is the Ouroboros is another symbol, snake symbolism. Snake eating its tail is representing endless cycles of infinite death and rebirth. Now, this is a sad concept, because it does liberate you, and you can think, everything's kind of like we can do anything, we can just enjoy and not really care about consequences. But the sad part is that it's we don't get to stay with the loved ones or live forever. And that's what these elites want to do. They want to live forever, but the thing is, they want to live forever because they're living a party and a happy life, for a fun party, happy life. But I'm going to close some of these tabs. But for the rest of us, we know that as the Bible says, and as some of your religions say, life is not easy. It's not supposed to be easy, and it's a test. And we're not supposed to be here forever. But they want to live forever, so they want to try to live forever. So they're trying to break this cycle because they want to be gods. And I think this God is evil, the God of order and perfection. So this temporary god of the world, Satan, who comes through in thousands of names, he's very clever. I mean, he was the smartest angel in heaven, and God made him good in the beginning, but God knew that he would become evil and be tempted, because we have to remember that if God just made everything perfect, we would get bored. We wouldn't know the lowest. So it's like we have to know the lowest, the suffering. That's what I'm talking about, the up and must down. Like up, like sine wave. Everything's a wave, up and down. Like we have to know the lowest point to we have to feel sad, sorrow, suffering, and get past through that, and learn to even accept him and not blame him for everything when really it's not his. He doesn't do things purposefully to punish us. Honestly, we bring everything upon ourselves, because everything we do bad actually comes back to us. It's like some kind of universal law. And there's a lot of things in Buddhism that are right, but actually followers of Christ, and like I don't even want to say Christians, because I believe a lot of Christians are hypocrites, but followers of Christ, people who really follow the teachings of Christ and of God, they know that, well, we know that everything's supposed to get worse, right? And anyway, so my point is that this guy, he comes in with many names, but Sophia is the goddess of below. And Yaldabaoth, they think he's evil, the god of order and perfection, but the goddess of below, of chaos and freedom, they believe that she's trying to liberate humanity, and then they're trying to blend dualities. So we're going to look for some things here. First of all, I just want to see if I went through a lot of this. So you guys can research this stuff if you want. But there's a couple other operations. Well, Operation Paperclip was essentially when, after the World War II, the Nazis actually were taken to the U.S. and they actually basically corrupted America from within. But basically the founding fathers were Freemasons, so everything was planned from the beginning. I mean, if you look at let's see here, where are we going here? This video might be everywhere, but like everywhere, but it's all connected, trust me. So where are we going? Oh yeah, Wyatt Earp. So when you look at the creation of sorry, my computer's really slow right now because I have so many tabs. This is a very old computer. So Wyatt Earp, a very famous law enforcement. He was the one who was in the old Wild West when it was like anarchy and there was no law and order. That he was the one trying to start, setting up law and, being a sheriff, right, with his men, which was good, right? But basically setting up the government, right? And this is all, he was actually a Freemason. Google says he wasn't, but when you go to like the Freemason website, he was one of the notable, famous Freemasons. And the G stands for, could be God, but it most likely is great work. I think there's something else it could be, but regardless, what they're trying to do is they're trying to blend the dualities. Like I said, they believe that if they blend the dualities, they can dissolve this realm and leave. Now, this is a book, I never read it, but I have to get this copy, but it's actually talking about how all these entities and these different religions are actually all connected, and they're all going to be used to make a one world order. So we're going to talk about mystery. We're going to talk about Babylon, but basically in the Bible there was a one world kingdom, and in the Bible it talked about how that kingdom was the strongest kingdom ever, and it would never even be overthrown. That the kingdom in the future would be trash compared to this kingdom because it was so powerful. But the ancient world, they're smarter and more. How should we say? They were more advanced than we were taught, because everything is in backwards. Everything in like the age of the earth is actually young. The age of the earth is 6,000 years old, and there was a realm-wide flood 4,400 years ago, and basically God, he created everything in 6 days, just like the Bible says, 6 literal days, and he rested on the 7th. So he created the whole universe. He created the whole universe with his words, with spoken words. And if you look at the ancient Greek word for universe, if you break it down, uni means single, and verse is spoken sentence. So that means single spoken sentence. Universe means single spoken sentence. But the earth is a realm, and all the ancient cultures knew the truth. But slowly over time, it was history that, like, we lost history. We lost information. The libraries of Alexandria got burned down. I wonder how many things information was in that. But basically, the devil is very clever and crafty, and he knows how to erase things and set up kingdoms in his place. But basically, God gives power to the kings of the earth, but he uses the devil to do this and to cause chaos. But basically, when God created everything. And I just want to show you here that Freemasons, they have the black and white symbolism. So that's the black and white. And if you look in every country, every city in the world has a Freemason lodge. In the Eastern, it would be like a Buddhist temple. It would be like a type of Buddhist temple. And again, every group I talk about, every group of people I talk about, it's not like every single type of these people are evil, but we can't deny from looking at these symbols and looking at these people grouped together and their connections that there are not groups of these people who are trying to control the world, right? And we see how everything's connected, how the world's inflation is getting worse, everything's getting essentially more and more hard to live. But they essentially use kids' cartoons to control our minds, and we see how they're using one-eyed symbolism here. Let me see here. They got the pyramids here, and remember this hat, but they got the triangle, the lightning here, the pyramids, and ask about Illuminati, the all-seeing eye. So he's even doing the double hand sign. He's doing as above, so below. Oh, he's doing that ancient symbol. Yeah, we'll look into that too again. But basically, the Rothschilds, they're they're actually an old Jewish family, the most powerful, but I believe that they are the synagogue of Satan, and the Jewish people are God's chosen people, and Israel is to be supported. But there is like a group of wealthy individuals they have rejected Christ and Jesus Christ, and they believe in this stuff about there's no God, and they believe in everything. They believe God is just like an energy source, and they believe that doing evil is actually good in some way, because they believe in the Kabbalah. They study the Kabbalah, and they believe that God, he has a gift of everlasting life, but we need to earn the gift. And in some way, I do believe that God is using the Jewish people in some capacity, but I think they're deceived. They will be eventually acknowledged they're wrong. But if we see here, the Vatican is completely involved in that too. We already saw that image there. all royal family, and it's not just the English family, but all royal families, all the Freemasons. And see, we've got the symbol here, that triangle, right? Same thing I was showing you guys. I'm telling you guys, everything's connected, and you see that here. Maybe we can close this one. The Jesuit order, and they have the black and white here. They even have a black pope. The black pope is actually, I heard, more powerful than the white pope, the regular pope, but they're all evil pedophiles and connected with this great work to blend everything in, because they all want to. I mean, I do understand, they do believe that it is for the greater good, but I mean, come on, it's just hard for me to believe that they would think that. They wouldn't realize that look at the beauty of the world and not see that God is actually good. But we can see here, this group of individuals are essentially in control of these puppets, and but basically, in the beginning of time. We'll go back into that later, but at the beginning of time, God, he created Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And this whole world is a giant pyramid scheme, but basically this is us, right? And I mean, this one, yeah, this is us, and basically these are the upper class. And the sellouts who are actually working for these guys, right? These are the millionaires, and they'll literally sell out and do anything to become because power. They're slaves to power, right? And people who don't know God can have demons jump into them, and anyone who's a narcissist is a demon, has a demon in them controlling them. So look, we got these soldiers. They use soldiers to shoot at you. They use these, and even I'm gonna say they even use all churches to because when I went back to when I was when I was younger, I started getting back into my Christianity, seeking the truth, and going to different churches. I started finding that they're all teaching a watered down, fake, not even what Jesus would teach, not even what God wants, they're all hypocrites. It's all one day we just dress nice and pray and act like we're good, but they normally they just go back to their old ways, you know what I mean? And then we got the top here, but basically in the beginning, when God, he created Adam and Eve, we are in the 6,000th year, millennia, and apparently 1,000 years is one day to God, and I believe in the seventh day for God, it might be the end of time. That would be when Jesus comes back and raises all his followers and takes us all away in the rapture. And then it's going to be 1,000 years in heaven, and then there's going to be 1,000 years of the Antichrist reign, which should be pretty bad. Just it would the good part of that would be it's going to be the book of Eli or Fallout, the video games, but then it's going to get more and more worse. It's going to become times of Noah, and we're going to talk about the times of Noah in this video too. But basically in the Bible, when God created Adam and Eve, sorry, so much stuff, fucking my head's spinning. Okay, so when God created Adam and Eve in the beginning, they were perfect in genetics, and Adam was already fully developed. So he could speak and he could actually name things. So he was intelligent, and I'm sure both Adam and Eve already had information, knowledge, wisdom already in their mind. Plus, they ate of the forbidden tree of fruit and knowledge of good and evil. So they ate from the fruit of the forbidden tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right. And Eve was actually a piece of Adam, because God took her. First, he made Adam out of clay. He breathed into him. And then he took a rib out of him and created Eve. So you can't say that. Like, for me, I don't know. It's hard for me to say, oh, male and female are completely opposite, because they're so different to compare. You know what I mean? They're already supposed to be one already. You know what I mean? So it's like these occultists, they teach this dualistic type philosophy about how everything is dualistic, but it's not. Because heat, like cold is lacking energy, heat. Darkness is lacking light, which is something, right? Hate is lack of love, which is lack of God inside of you. And you can have God inside of you and not fully know him too. You know what I mean? And people choose to either live that way, to live in sin and cut themselves off. But man is fallen, and we need redemption. We need Jesus Christ. We need God in human form, his blood, because blood's spiritual currency to save us. But we can see from the beginning of time, after the fall of man, they left the Garden of Eden. They lived up to 1,000 years. They were perfect in genetics. But now we live shorter years, and we're shorter. We live 70 years instead of 1,000, instead of 600, 1,200, 800 years old. And imagine all the things you could learn. And especially they spread out. Adam and Eve had knowledge probably of mathematics, astronomy, natural medicine, human anatomy, human health, crafting, I think did I say architecture, and after that, the fallen angels came down, and they actually taught man even more things. So I don't know if I'll open that tab up. There was one tab that I wanted to find. I might get that later, but basically, let's see. So basically, there's a group of Jewish people, right? And they teach Jewish mysticism, and they teach pretty much a large group of them are in control and teach their philosophies. Not to hate on anyone, but we're just saying the truth here. That the term anti-Semitic was coined so that we wouldn't even be able to say nothing about them. They are God's chosen people, but like I said, there are some that just have rejected, that do evil willfully and reject Jesus, right? We can see here, pretty much all the actors are Jewish. And I'll just let you see that there. And these are the ones that they actually admit, because usually they're just changing their last names, hiding it. But they teach about the Kabbalah, right? And the Kabbalah is pretty much Satanism. It's teaching about it's pretty much showing about I'll just let you look at first at these people, and you can just see the facial features. And then this guy, I just want to add something here. Mel Gibson, we're going to go back to my channel. He was talking about the fires. And he was either God came from heaven and burned evil, satanic Hollywood because of their evil, or another possibility is that they just took insurance and burned it down purposefully. Like they burned all this property down because they've been burning down all these private lands to move people into the cities to prepare for Agenda 2030. Because they're gonna try to make this one world kingdom, one world religion, one world government, one world currency. And everyone's gonna be forced to have central digital CBDCs, you know. But we all know about that, right? A lot of us do. A lot of us are aware about it, or a lot of us that care, right? But we can see, if you look here, just look at his face here. Look, this is just by chance, but nothing's by chance. Everything I'm being led to is by the spirit of, you know, God is showing me everything, right? But look at his face. If we blew that up, we can see he's smiling. He's smiling. His eyes are shining, laughing almost. I can tell, because I can read body language really, really well. We're going to continue with these people here. Here's the history, but this group of people were expelled from multiple countries for the same reasons as always, because not all of them, but I guess they have special gifts and they're able to make money through banking, and they essentially take over the country from within quite easily over time, and they impose a lot of like unfair, imbalanced kind of regulation that against, but they are God's chosen people, right? So they have their own kind of thing. They have their own, I guess, tasks, right? That Gentiles don't. You know, but then again, the Bible says that in the New Testament that there's a synagogue of Satan, right? And that if you don't accept Christ, that you are not with God, right? That He does not know you, and that also, that the true Jew, I think it was Paul or Peter, I think, said that the true Jew is one who accepts Christ. So it could be all different now. We see Vatican City. Oh my God, I didn't even notice that black and white there. Let's go to the first image here. We got a lot of dome symbolism because these groups, they use the Masons to create, they put information in their architecture, and that's signifying that they know the Earth's a dome. We're living in a dome. The sky's a dome. It's a giant mirror. It's a reflective surface. And around the Earth, basically, the all-seeing eyes, Lucifer's all-seeing eye, because he wants us to know and see everything, because he can't, because he can't, because he's not omniscient. But look, they're very open about it, guys. It's not like a huge conspiracy. You see the black and white Freemason ritual. I think this is the 33rd degree. Look, the initiation ritual to the 33rd degree involves a little boy bride. I'll say no more. See, they invert everything. So they're marrying a little kid, and it's a boy, because they want to do the opposite of what God. It's like a big mockery. And then it's like this all started with when the Knights Templar, they went to the Middle East to fight in the Holy Wars against the Muslims, and then basically they learned a lot of things when they were there, and when they came back, when Islam kicked them, beat them, defeated them, they were corrupted because they had learned so many things from other parts in East, like the Buddhist type stuff, and they blended the cultures. But basically, there's a pattern. There's a pattern of these elites with kingdoms creating a coup, or they cause a power struggle, and they cause a war. But through that war, they take over both sides, and they do this continuously until nations are created. Like example, if you talk about Italy, right, or talk about the States, or talk about any country that was ever created, it always started fractured. Like Spain, right, their empire, right? They always started fractured, but they started expanding, taking over. They started like growing in separate, like different big, like kingdoms, and then they have a huge battle, and then eventually one king takes over the whole place, right? You know what I mean? Or unites them into an empire or something like that. But the Vatican City we can see here. Let's see, but it's like auto. They have the phallic here. it's always the same. They always have the Freemasonic pillars, and all this architecture is always leading back to ancient Egypt and the mystery religions, because all this comes back to where they came from, and that was they were taught by fallen angels. So back to the history. It's like everything we have to go back into, but hang on, I did want to talk about the flat Earth for a second here. So this is part of the Freemason stuff. We're just kind of recognizing their symbols, but all this stuff is like occult symbols. The star, and they worship the sun and moon. Anything but the real God in heaven. But I believe the stars are actually angels, a type of angel, and there are other angels in heaven. So this hand sign, 666. So 666 is the number of Satan, but 6 is actually the number of man, which is his base form, incomplete form. This number means incomplete. 7 is the number of God. 7 is a special number for God. It means complete. 6 is the base number. Just remember that. 6 is the base number for the flesh. For the beast, it's the beast number, 666. And we can see here the Catholic Church is doing stuff that relates back to the Egypt pagan religions. And this, how come, look, all these different religions and different cultures, they all have the same symbol. It's because, like I said, every single royal family, they've all been working together, and they've always been partying together, doing psychedelics, spreading knowledge, sharing knowledge, and they've come to the conclusion that everyone would come to, that everything is cycles, infinite cycles, that everyone is God, and that they want to break the cycle because they want to live forever, because they want to be with each other forever, which is a normal thought process, right? But they don't know that's a huge deception from Satan, and he wants them to believe that they can be God, and that God doesn't have a plan, and he's not there, and he doesn't love us, and he doesn't want us to live forever. You know what I mean? And we're going to talk about psychedelics too, because I have experience with that, but basically, I believe that this has something to do with where where this all these things come from, because these spirits. But basically, okay, Adam and Eve were intelligent. They had offspring. They taught them all this advanced knowledge. They spread across the earth. They built massive civilizations, and they ruled well because they knew God. But then the fallen angels came down, and taught them forbidden knowledge about how to make weapons, like the bow, the armor, the shield, plate armor, right? How to do root cuttings, do drugs, how to make jewelry, other stuff about tillage, how to make money, and how to make case systems and laws. So pretty much, they put them in a giant. They created a pyramid scheme, and they created a society. That's exactly what these beings did, and then they demanded to be worshipped. And basically, let's just go back to here. It's pretty much the same story that this book, the Book of Enoch, which is actually supposed to be part of the Bible, but they took it out because it was too advanced. I think it was during the time when they were settling North America. Everyone was really Christian, but they were too scared to talk about this part because they were scared about angels coming down and mating with women. But the only church that was loyal in Ethiopia kept it. But slowly over time, every country, every nation will be corrupted, right? Because God is he's trying to gather up all the wheat, right? So you're going to be the wheat, or you're going to be the chaff. The chaff are the people who don't accept him, right? But basically, they don't want you to believe that these fallen angels came and taught man stuff. And that they came down there like, I am God, and worship me. They came down like powerful, big. They took all the beautiful wives. This is where the hijab, where women cover themselves in the Middle East from head to toe, so that men don't see their body. This is where this whole thing came from, because the people became afraid. The kings were afraid. Everyone saw their wives disappear and were taken by these beings, and they said, from now on, we're going to make a law that we cover up all the women to protect them from these things, these beings. Over time, it's been lost. Like, I think, like I said, every culture has like a lot of truth. Like, example, ancient Hinduism, I believe a lot of them are like, they have a lot of wisdom, right, and knowledge, right, same with Buddhism. But I think a lot of those, there's these spirits in these religions that they actually are worshipping these spirits, and evil ones or demons or spirits that, because there are spirits that God assigned to govern the sun and moon, and to govern the winds and the seas and stuff like that. Even in the Bible, it says the sea is male. And God can speak to fish. He's everywhere, and can do anything, and knows everything, and knows every thought of man and everything they'll ever say. Anyway, we're gonna go back to here. We see, but they rather teach this, ancient aliens, that the Earth is billions of years old, and the universe is, billions and billions of years old, and there's infinite cycles of big bangs that explode and compress and explode and compress, and multiple alien civilizations that have lived and died and have had war, but we never meet them. Not yet, but they're trying to fake. They're gonna fake a big alien invasion. That's all this propaganda is about. They want to fake it because they want to cause us to be scared of a threat that's not earthly, so that we can unite under one banner. But basically, you can tell this guy's Jewish, right? God bless the Jewish people. God bless them. But I'm just gonna follow Christ and just follow what I believe, right? I pray that they follow God too. But we can see that, so it's a pretty detailed list of them getting expelled from here, from this group of people getting expelled from different nations from all history, and and eventually God did promise to give them Israel, and they eventually were given it. They did get the land. We see, wow, there's a lot of history here. It goes all the way to, like, wow, that's crazy. That is insane. Anyway. Okay, so we looked at Vatican City. Okay, so we're going back to the history. So God, he sent angels to bind the fallen angels, and in history they want to teach us, like, these ancient cultures, like, we don't know where they came from, but basically these ancient cultures came from the spreading of the man from Adam and Eve, right? They were so massive, and they could literally build a civilization from scratch because they were so advanced. They had technology, like knowledge of technology. And you look at all these old sites all around the world, and I mean, we're gonna see one here. Like, if I'm even gonna be awake to get to that point, but everything is connected, guys. Everything's connected. You're gonna see everything is connected. I need coffee or something. Fucking computer. Sorry, I'm just going to try to clean this up. Okay, well, let's continue this here. So they want us to believe that basically, like, this is just a cartoon from the same people who probably look like that they drew Rick and Morty. But basically, they're trying to teach us that our ancestors were advanced alien beings that were just like us, but they were more advanced with technology. They came from outer space, and that we're living on a ball Earth, and that we can actually become like them eventually, the same advanced, and that we are just the people with our genetically modified primates, and that we can eventually, over time, like everything else, evolve to become powerful. But if you look at a Dr. Kent Hovind seminar, I talk about that on my channel a lot. Dr. Kent Hovind. He has an excellent seminars 1 to 7 throughout online. You can see them on YouTube for free. But basically, they're quite long, but you learn quite a bit. And he does have quite. I like his humor, although sometimes he might be a little brash, and especially now he's a little bit bitter since they locked him up in prison under false charges to hide the truth. Because he went around debating evolutionary professors and debating them in universities and humiliating them in front of this whole student body. But he debated creation science, and he brought up so many good points, and he made like a lot of points, like what came first, gas to make the stars, or the stars to create the elements? Or they all came in a big bang, they exploded with nothing. So nothing exploded and created a bunch of elements to create. So, but then the hydrogen is evolving to uranium. How does hydrogen and helium turn into uranium and lead? You know what I mean? Like, when you look at chemistry, actually, when you break it down, everything gets more complicated the deeper you go into the actual, like, atoms. So everything about evolution is BS. Like, so, okay, so you're saying pond slime, you know what I mean? Okay, like a pond slime, a pond sludge evolved into like a fish that crawled onto land, suddenly didn't die. It was able to instantly survive with gills. It breathed air, and then it found a mate perfectly that was compatible, and they were able to breed. Huh. Yeah, right. Use your brain, guys. I used to be the same way, guys, but God blessed me because I opened my mind. I opened my mouth and said, "Please, God, I want to know the truth." And look how much He helped me. Praise God. Praise God. God gets all the glory, and you guys can know the same thing. God can do so many things more, so much more. But these people want us to believe this nonsense, these lies. And I just want to show this, look how dark these disgusting children's cartoons with the same symbols, and look at the hat there. I showed you, remember the hat? That hat there for that character that was locked in the prison. That looks similar, huh? Right? The all-seeing eye, the pyramid, and it's like a ritual here. It gets really demonic, actually. That's fucked up, but that's the state of our society. It's getting worse and worse. They're just gonna they're not even gonna hide their it's like, it's satanic. It's just, they want to say it's some kind of Gnosticism, but it's just Satanism. And even here, actually, I want to show you guys how these people, they do human sacrifice, and they do eat children. They eat babies for various reasons, but they believe it gives them power here on Earth, because they do sacrifice children to Baal. Like, Satan has different names: Sophia, Baal, Remphan, Moloch, right? He has different names, but since he sacrificed children in the old days, but basically, as these societies grew, I guess some people who fell away from God, and the people who are in the top of the pyramid in society, they started learning teachings from spirits, because they were doing psychedelics. And I believe psychedelics and doing mushrooms and doing ayahuasca and DMT, which ayahuasca is liquid DMT, doing all that stuff, it breaks down the spiritual realm, the barrier between the spiritual realm and reality. And then these spirits teach you the same thing, because there's a pattern I see that society's teaching: a pantheistic, which is many gods, monistic, that the universe and we are God, and nihilistic, that there's no point, atheistic, like like or that, no, not even atheistic, like, yeah, that we are monistic, pantheistic, nihilistic point of view. And it's literally, it's dangerous. And we can see here, so then literally this is where it's all stemmed from. So then anyway, God, he bound the angels, then he flooded the earth 4,400 years ago. And it was a realm-wide flood. It was a realm-wide flood. But actually I want to show you here just the symbol here, Star of David, but it's actually the Star of Remphan. But we see here is a code here. 6-pointed star, 6-sided, 6 triangles, 666. We already saw that. 666. We will look at that later. Okay, so the scientists have found the fossils of a fish on the peaks of the Himalayan mountains. A fact which contributes to the theory that the entire Earth was once completely covered with water. So, to be honest, it would be impossible for that to happen, the flood narrative to happen, if it was a ball Earth. But the Earth is a realm. I mean, it probably could be possible, but it's easier if it's a realm, right? Because it's like a fish, like an enclosed system, you know, like a fish, like a snow globe, right? Or like a bowl, right? That could flood, right? But they found a lot of sea fossils in the high up in the mountains, or they found on Everest seashells, or they found ancient deserts with ancient fossil sea creatures. But they say, oh, this was millions and millions of years ago. There was an ocean here. No, that's not true. If you look around the Earth was destroyed. You can tell by a giant flood. Look at all the erosion. Everything was destroyed, man. All these ancient sites that we see, because there was a one world society. All of them were doing the same thing. They were all partying, doing the same thing. And then God flooded. Well, they weren't partying. It was getting really bad, actually, because the angels by this time had messed up the world so bad that people were doing rape, murder, killing, stealing, all sorts of disgusting rituals and sodomy and animals with stuff with animals, and also genetics were tampered by that time, because the fallen angels want to screw up God's creation, so they want to corrupt everything. So they started doing genetically modifying stuff. Genetically modifying. They taught man root cuttings, how to do drugs, and how to make swords, how to make makeup, how for women to look beautiful and probably make high heels, and all these different things. And they probably did all these things about entertainment, these effects, illusions and stuff. Probably other stuff about how to summon demons, who knows what other stuff, right? But sex magic, mysticism. But anyway, you do dark stuff in the world, Satan will lift you up, but he pretty much gives people a half a life. He gives them a half-life of suffering, and then he takes everything after. So he lifts them up, and then he takes them everything away unless they keep doing sacrifices and rituals, which is I've noticed. If you're famous for a long time, then you've done a lot of sacrifices. We're gonna keep going here though. So this is actually regarding the cycles, but the ancients noticed that the stars in the sky were circling Polaris. So we see here that the Big Dipper and these other constellations were actually circling, which is it's impossible for the Earth to be perfectly aligned with the North Star. If they're in space, they would incur parallax. So no parallax was detected, which would be the shifting. But since they're both objects in motion in space, in a vacuum, which is not something floating, everything would be falling. But and my goodness, and then stars, you can tell what a star, like I've studied this all my whole life. Stars, you can tell what elements are burning by the color alone. But I filmed stars myself, and we can see the stars are not what they tell us. I just wish this garbage would hurry the hell up. Odd. Huh. Okay. I hope this is not doing not too shit. Okay, so here's basically
Yahweh and all this other stuff, and we do Shabbat and all. Gentiles ought not to be changing English words to Hebrew words. A little creepy. But here we have the tree of life.
Oh yeah.
This big.
So this guy, he kind of explains a lot of things about this, but about the Kabbalah. But essentially, he's saying that this stuff's all connected with New Age, and it's the same thing. But they have the two pillars in the Freemasons lodges, and basically, it's teaching. It's like blending. It's essentially the same thing, that Satan is gonna use the male and female and blend it into one distinct race of beings on a new kingdom on earth, and they're all going to be sodomites. So males who are like females, females who are like males, who will eventually, after they transgender themselves like crazy, turn to technology to live forever and become like a one race of transcendent human beings. But it's going to fail because they're going to be like in a prison. But this is all connected with New Age and the teachings of Thoth in ancient Egypt, because the fallen angels came and taught these cultures forbidden knowledge and all this stuff that is essentially wrong. Like, they're just trying to teach man that, oh, God is not really God, but he's an energy source that you can tap into, and that essentially we're all God. That's what they teach, exactly what they teach. Because I was reading the Thoth teachings, but essentially after the angels were bound, the fallen angels, I guess things were found, like old scripts and stuff like that, and stone tablets were found with the compendium of knowledge, because we're going to see how ancient Babylon, which was essentially Mesopotamia, or you can even call it, they had different names for it. Mesopotamia, oh, Heavenly Father, what was the name of it? Where they had they built the Tower of Babel, Tower of Babylon. But then, oh yeah, well, that was after the flood, right? But then they essentially came back again, tried to build another world order. They had another one world kingdom, which is the most powerful kingdom that ever lived. But then they tried to build a tower to the heavens, because the earth is a realm. So they literally could build a tower to the heavens. And we'll see a kind of like a little bit here, but I just want to kind of take a little bit of a... Okay, listen to this part here.
These ghosts!
Those are the Death Stranding, Rick!
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't paying attention.
Jeez, Rick, you know,
This is just like Rick and Morty. It's very... I think it was kind of funny, but it's quite satanic, and it's quite heavy on propaganda, science, lies.
We've been walking for a while, and I got this baby in a tube here.
Maybe it's some sort of crazy upgrade. Hold on, I've got an idea.
Hey, stop,
All right,
stop!
it's not an upgrade. Let's eat it.
What? We can't eat it, it's a baby!
Morty, what if it makes us run faster or jump higher?
Okay, let's eat the baby.
So they make a joke about eating a baby to normalize it in the minds, because that's how mind control works. Because if you'd be surprised on the things that these people can do with the mind. What the hell is this? Here's another thing. The elites took over Japan. Like, okay, it's always been about royal families trying to essentially war with one another and see who can maintain their power. And they essentially, these royal families, you think, oh, money makes you rich and happy, but then it's not, because they would marry just to maintain power. But I guess they would sleep around on the side, but it was like never love, never any happiness, right? But basically, this is like in the 1100s, 1200s, 1400s AD, right? But back in time, let's go back in time. We're 4400 BCE, whatever. The flood happened. Noah and his family survived. So this one family, they were the one family that survived, but they had knowledge of the old world. So some of them could teach their kids, and they were raised in that like education system. So a lot of them had knowledge, because nothing's new under the sun. Whatever has been done, whatever we do has already been done. Like they've had entertainment, like theater back in the days. They had like electricity. They were making jewelry. Like these fallen angels came and were doing things that we would be surprised. And we're gonna see in like these documentaries how they go to the old Mayan places in Peru, and you're gonna be mind blown. Like the things they had, people were saying that how is it possible they built it without like help from? But the elites want to say aliens, but it's not. It was fallen angels teaching with forbidden knowledge. Because we're living in a realm, because the earth, when the flood came, it rained, right? But the water came from underground. And Dr. Walt Brown, he has a good theory. It's called the hydroplate theory. But essentially, all the water came from underground, burst out, and the water spread out all over the world, and everyone was buried, and all the civilizations were buried. Then later on, they re-excavated all the old world, and they learned knowledge. And then Babylon regrew. But then God, he destroyed that. He destroyed it again. But we're going to go back here. Anyway, so World War II, they used Japan to help. They fund both sides of the war. They caused the war, right? These elites caused the war. The war. They fund both sides. But look, after I noticed the takeover of rebuilding of Japan, they didn't really rebuild Japan's infrastructure that much. Like the buildings look like shit. If earthquakes happen or some shit, everything falls apart. Poor Japanese people, they're such hardworking people, but heavily brainwashed. They will work 12, 14 hours a day, and they're content to work all their days life and never have like fun or eat noodles, like cheap quality. And I'm not saying all of them, but it doesn't look like their quality of life is not that. Look like there's a lot of suicide. But anyway, there's heavy propaganda, and we see a lot of their anime. I already made an episode about how Japanese anime is basically used to control the minds of the masses there and the world, actually. And I do love anime, but they essentially have a vendetta against God because they hate God. They think God is evil because he's a selfish, evil bastard that just wants to keep having the cycle going so he can experience, because they think everyone is God. They think everything's energy, basically, so they can do evil and good. They can do good deeds and balance out their evil deeds. So that's why a lot of these evil people can do all these things, because they're doing it for the greater good, and they don't care, because in the end, everything's energy, and everything is one. They think everyone is everything. Anyway, so you see here, this anime, D-Gray Man, it's about... And everything's related to the Bible. Everything goes back to the Bible. But we see here, this looks even like the Tower of Babel. But this is like a show about this guy's an exorcist, and he's like able to fight demons. But anyway, I stopped watching it because it kept taking forever to like release one episode. It like 1 week every time. It was like 2 weeks to wait for one episode. But basically, this show sneaks up on you later on, because I found this episode, it was like way later on, like episode whatever, it was 73, and I think I only watched like up to 40 or something by that point, and I quit. And then years later I checked, and this one part where this chick, she's basically, they find out that the exorcists catch kids, and they put like a demon crystal in their body to give them powers to be able to fight demons. So this order is essentially evil. And then she basically says she hates God. This one character, she starts cursing God, this chick. Let's see, where does she start cursing God? Come on, where are we here? Just like this demon that's like in their fucking base. It's like high level demon. It's like they're higher than they are able to handle. I don't know. I just stopped watching this shit for a long time. And I'm like, where the hell is this guy? We should be able to kill this thing easily, but I don't know. You know how it works. When does she start screaming? Oh, here, I think. Fuck, where is it? Whatever, she starts screaming, you know, bitching about God, right?
そうだリナリー所詮に
みんなが
その傷では立つことすら無理です。
たより進めたのでここからは階段だ。ところ彼女はたまたま過去の実験を知っている。
なのさ。
回収は無理だ。ヘラスカ、リナリーにイノセンスを。早く。
室長。カムイ。室長。しまった。リナリー。
Well, anyway, somewhere in here. We don't need to waste our time looking for it, but the point is, you see it in the beginning of the episode. I think it might be a two-part episode, but she's somewhere in here. She says she fucking hates the God. The God I hate. To the God I hate, yeah. So, I remember this part very distinctly. You can even go look for that shit yourself. I don't have time for that right now. We have a lot to cover still. Probably we're like halfway through this episode, which is nuts. Okay, so anyway, so essentially these guys are having occult knowledge, and actually I just want to show quickly this trailer here, just to show you, like, dude, this world is getting really fucking, like why is it called Sinners? You know what I mean?
Hey there, we heard tale of a party. You did? You wouldn't mind us coming in now, would you? We hungry as dogs. Woof woof. You fellas must be the owners of this establishment.
That's right.
And you are?
We just came here to play. Here, I'll show you.
Pick poor, I've been clean. Pick poor, I've been clean.
I picked his head, I picked his feet. I would have picked his body, but it wasn't fit to eat. Let's go now. Da 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 da.
It looks kind of fun. But anyway, they're both vampires. I think he says something about, it's like a subliminal.
Kill every last one of you.
Sinners. He starts screaming like, all I need is power, you know what I mean? Something like that. And it's like, dude, it's kind of teaching subliminally what people, like, what youth should be chasing after. Because this is how they work. I think even in Captain America, Civil War. No, Captain America, Winter Soldier. They showed the part where they went underground and the Nazi base was saying straight up that he was talking about Operation Paperclip, which is a real life event, how the Nazis came to American government and they took them and shared. I mean, these elites are just sharing their information with one another, right? They know that they're all together. They know that that they can be a leader, a royal family, right? They can cause a war, and then when the invading party comes, they'll just be captured and negotiated with. And even though the other people, all the people underneath them will be destroyed or killed, they have a high chance to be saved, right? Because they're elites. But it's like a code. You don't kill the bloodline elite on the other side of the war. You know what I mean? Okay, so the flood happens, so they spread out, and a lot of them they were just taught by Noah, so they had knowledge of God and the flood, and they knew that God was real. The flood happened. Everyone knew about the flood because God's judgment had just happened. The earth was destroyed. These ancient cultures spread out, and every culture had knowledge of the flood, and we're gonna go find that now. So we see the ancient Chinese dynasty. The ancient Chinese culture, their ancient language, they actually used these caricatures, which actually were pictures that have meaning, and broken down they can be put into words, right? But this one actually says was interesting. The word for boat, their pictures broken down means vessel with 8 people. Now this was a discovery made by this guy here from this book, noted there. It's just a confirmation that Genesis of the Bible actually was real. Now you can deny that if you want, but I assure you to look into that and open your mind, open your heart, because that's how I learned everything. Everything I know now is because I went against what I believed, because I didn't believe any of this at first. I was actually completely believing in space. Didn't even believe Jesus was real at one point in my life. Would hate or curse God, right? Okay, let's continue here. Forgive me, Father in heaven, right? Okay, so these things have been found. They found Noah's Ark in Turkey. They found the chariot wheels in the Dead Sea. They found the brimstones of Sodom and Gomorrah. They have the linen of Jesus Christ. They had these and a few of these in different sites around the world of proven of giants, just like in the Bible spoke of the split rock of Horeb, where Moses led the Israelites to have water in the desert. They found the actual Mount Sinai, and not the real one, and not the fake one. The one they talk about is not the real one, and the one that you go there is not even the real one either. You have to have a guide and go to the real one. It's actually way off in the boonies where you need a guide. It's like no one's there because it's the real one, but it's actually blackened at the top. I think it's in Arabia. I think so. Anyway, and the flat earth is actually mentioned in the original Bible too. But the elites want to change everything and invert everything. So what was flat will be the opposite of flat. But if you don't believe in that, whatever. But I've looked into that for many, many years, and this video is not specifically about flat Earth, but I'm just saying the truth, and you can believe it or not. Anyway, you can see the elites they have. I like to watch abandoned mansions, where people go into these abandoned mansions and look at these. And people say, oh, why don't these houses even be used for people to live in? Or can't they be used for something? The elites don't want to help us. They want to make everyone poorer and poorer, so that we can submit to their whatever they say. They're going to say, hey, everyone has to get this in their body, a microchip. Then we have to, right? So anyway, you can see he's doing the hidden hand sign, right? So anyway, okay. Looking for another picture here. So we got this is in Italy, and this is of a giant's and a skull. And I haven't been there. I don't know, but this might be some kind of real fancy place in Naples, like a museum for elites. I don't know, but it's like apparently a giant skull there in hand and leg. And here's what it says about here. I'm not gonna read that. You can read that yourself, but I don't really buy that Tartaria was like, I think this is essentially just the Great Flood, right? But basically, in the old days when people would find these giants, they would actually the Smithsonian would come and collect them and hide the bones or destroy them because they don't want people to know about the Bible truth. what we see here, there's actually a video of it too. Some people say that these are fake. I don't know, I'd have to go there and see it myself, but there's a video too. And you know, someone could say, "Oh, I made it. It's fake." If it's real, you know what I mean. So, someone says it's fake. Someone says it's real. The point is that I believe that there are things there. Wait, why would they have these things here for no reason? Remember, like I said, every culture, has a piece of truth. And we're gonna go to the Eastern and Buddhist, Hinduism later on. But okay, so the culture is spreading out. They all know God, right? So since they know God, they're actually gonna build. They're gonna build amazing homes and amazing, like, how should we say? They're gonna build amazing, like, places for the people because they know that they should be good people because God is real. So, but then what happens is that, oh, and they also put information in their actual architecture. But we see these pictures. I mean, this video is called "Interesting Old Cities versus New." We can see that the old cities appeared to be more advanced in the 1200, 1100. There's a site called the David's Rumsey Collection, and we go and find old hand-drawn pictures of cities in the old days. And what I was noticing was that a lot of these places look massive, well organized, with a lot of churches and a lot of these towers. And it was kind of it was like all over Europe, and it was pretty much showing that these places were advanced. The people were advanced. They were coming along well. That there was not going to be a Dark Ages. Unless some group, just like in the movie Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul, he says that whenever a society becomes too strong, they came and destroyed it. Well, everything's too well orchestrated to be just a secret society, just a bunch of groups coordinating, a bunch of billionaires coordinating. It's actually evil spirits and demons who are actually influencing these people, and things are happening, you know, on their own too. Spiritual things, because I do think everything happens for a reason. Example, like you think of someone and they call you, or you know someone well and you see them in the most random spot that you bump into them because you have a connection unseen, or you have a dream that your family member is harassing you because they're spiritually against you because they've never been for you. Because if they're for you, they're either for you or they're against you. Anyway, so we're continuing here. We see in architecture a lot of interesting things, but we see a lot of these buildings are a lot larger. But over time, fires, orchestrated fires, demolitions, destroyed all these beautiful large structures. That proved that back then things were going well until the powers that be had to start destroying things. They started monopolizing things, education, creating systems to keep us distracted and to keep us dumbed down. Look at these places. Amazing. I think the Russian one blows my mind too sometimes. There was like a good Russian king, and then he was killed in a same thing that like they always do. They had some kind of war, and basically killed him or assassinated him. Look at that. Oh yeah, this one's crazy. So basically everyone knew God, everyone was respectful, and no one was cheating on their wife, whatever, everyone was good. No one was stealing. But then, you know what happened? The kings were the only ones who knew about the black and white, who knew about this stuff, about the cycles, about how everything is, they think that everything like that, because they were doing rituals and doing psychedelics and everything. But look, let's see here. I want to show you this. Linwood Hall in America. Look, how come every castle, every mansion, every estate has all these, the same black and white checkerboard? Always, always, always. Black and white checkerboard, wherever you go. Black and white. Devil. Everything. It's always referenced. If it's fake, if the spiritual realm's fake, if Satan's fake, why is everything always showing it? Look. Black and white. And I do like Bros of Decay. I like his show. But we see the black and white, and he's probably too dull to even think about why they keep seeing the black and white. Let's see here. This one is interesting too, Forgotten Lives. This is a cool channel too. We see that these people were used from childhood just to be like cattle to raise children. And these royal families, they would always inbreed to protect the bloodline because they care so much about power. Because that's all it is about for them is power. To maintain power. But it's like an addiction. Like example, you see that crackhead outside downtown wandering around, his eyes wide open, gaunt face, skinny, crouched, slumped over, looking disheveled, he's just looking for drugs. That's all he cares about. His next hit. Well, that's all these people care about. Just more power. And when they get power, they want more power. It's never enough. But you see these people, and this, I feel sorry for this chick, man. This little girl, she was just used for to have children, and she just died at a young age. So sad. But you see the lives that they live in these shows, and you're like, oh my gosh, these places are huge. Like look at these places. And they want to tell us, oh, these guys were dumb and not as advanced. Yeah, right. Yeah, there were some things they weren't advanced in, like example, medicine, or the invention of, say, the automobile, right? But they were advanced in other ways. Say example in how in law, or like in running a city, or having people have good lives, happy lives, or in knowing God, or knowing the natural world, the natural herbs. There was universities of, these early days in the 1200s, 1100s, universities for natural medicine. But these eventually the elites who are still in the king castles nowadays, they monopolized everything and changed everything. But let's see what is there. And then sometimes you see all these kings and rulers, all their kids, they didn't survive. Oh yeah, some disease. I think they were sacrificed. I think they always did these sacrifices to maintain their power. Now, remember, the elites only, the king and queen were the only ones who knew about this secret beliefs. Even all their people who steward under them, the maids and stuff like that, they were all Christian. Even in all these old houses, when you go into like the mansions, like when the people go into the mansions, you see these crosses. All of them had crosses on the wall because all of them knew God. We can see the angels here. And you see NASA, the stars in the sky. This is not what NASA will ever show you. My channel has a bunch of beautiful videos with my telescopic Nikon P900. It's like equivalent to a 1980s, I think, a 800 millimeter lens over the shoulder, something like that. You can zoom in from like way up on the mountains from where I am. I'm way at the bottom by the water, but I can actually see not by the water, but at ground level almost, and I can see the way up the mountains or way at the stars. So they lied about the distances of these objects, and they are circling above us. Tests have proven that stars are circling above us. So everything's backing up the biblical narrative. You can believe that if you want, but we see that. Look, even in this is an old city in Italy, and look at how these guys were actually having these skyscrapers. And some people say, oh, this is just an exaggeration. No, this is actually how it was. Many collapsed. Look, 13th century, guys. 13th century. And then, it's funny, and then these guys, these cultures would find ancient sites from Babylon, or not Babylon. They would find Babylon, or they would find older sites like the pyramids, the Great Pyramid, or they would find the Mayan things, pre-flood stuff in Peru, and they would be like, "Whoa, these things advanced." But anyway, let's see here. Everything's connected. What's this? Okay, so you guys have seen that already. The as above, so below. God above, God below. Oh yeah. So I was thinking that, I don't really buy the narrative so much about. I do believe that in the end Hitler was used by this group to essentially be the other half of the other side of the war, right? The left and right, and essentially when the war is over to consolidate powers, just almost like they've always used dictators to pretty much destabilize countries or to cause aggro, and then all the countries attack them. You know what I mean? But basically, they use these political figures. They teach them their occult ways. Even I heard Hitler was actually researching with sorcerers, because these rulers in the castles, they use sorcerers and black magic to try to win wars. So that's how they started learning all this stuff, because it's all real. But the same symbol, because that's not an evil symbol. The Buddhists use the same symbol, but I showed you what that symbol means already. Oh, this was another ancient Chinese picture, but if you break it down, it's actually talking about the Garden of Eden. Ancient Chinese language. That's why the next dynasties changed the language, because they wanted to hide this truth, the biblical truth, because the occult elitists, they believe that they can be God. They're believing what Satan says. Satan taught that you can be a god. So like I said, everything's connected, as above, so below. This is out in Washington, and a lot of these government places have these same type buildings. Why? So an old flat Earth map, but this is actually showing the north. So in flat Earth, the whole realm is a circle, and there's a barrier, and all the ancient cultures, they said that the sky was like a bronze, like the ancient Greeks, every ancient culture, ancient Egyptians, ancient Aztecs, everyone, because they all knew the truth, because they all knew the history, they all had knowledge of the old world. But this is the North Pole. If you head to the north, there's going to be a black magnetic mountain where I'm not sure if there's a hole there or if it's the mountain itself, but reacting to something electromagnetic, because the sun and moon are positive, negative. They're about 5,000, 6,000 kilometers in the sky. I think 3,000 to 6,000 kilometers up there. Wait, 3,000 to 5,000 miles up. And about 30 miles in diameter. I don't know. We're just throwing things out there, but we definitely know it's a realm. It's an enclosed realm. There's no space, as they lie to us. I've already looked into it. The NASA liars are liars. Are you going to trust elites who are controlled by evil, or a random person, a random nobody, who has nothing to gain from just talking about what he's looked into. Look into it yourself. But the center of the earth, this is where the real Garden of Eden is. And that's Aurora Borealis, is this flaming sword of the angel in the Bible. But they want to say, oh, it was the Euphrates, and the Euphrates is actually in Middle East. No, because this is the flood. This stuff was from pre-flood. So after the flood, they could have floated anywhere and renamed things from the old world. So the Euphrates could have named, oh yeah, that's the Euphrates. You know what I mean? To remember the old world. So many places are called New York, or New York. You know what I mean? Not so many places, but you know what I mean. Anyway, this guy has a good channel, Paul Cook, and he actually goes around the world and he independently studies sites and talks about how these governments are hiding these sites, and they're all over the world, Britain, America, Middle East and such too, all over the world. Every country has their own hidden ancient cultures that were before them, buried. And buildings, pyramids, even China has some pyramids hiding deep in their country. But he's pretty much come to the conclusion that they had technology and able to do like pipes, electricity, and even advanced water systems. And even he was suspecting that they actually were able to make liquefied stone, which actually would explain how they can make a lot of these things. But I think in some cases they were able to make liquefied stone. In other cases they were able to actually chop it if it was like an angel or something cutting some of these stones. But a lot of these things are very precise. But I just wanted you guys to see something, because the Knights Templar was talking about that. It's all connected. Listen to what he says about this.
Well, the orders, property and wealth were given to the Knights Hospitallers, a rival order. And the persecution, the Templars went into decline after Muslims reconquered the Holy Land at the end of the 13th century. So now we know about the Knights Templar, and we have a little background on these caves. Let's actually go and have a look at this. So the BBC News reports that rabbit hole found in Farmer's Field leads to mystery caves.
In UK.
According to local legend, the Caton Caves near Shifnal in Shropshire were used by followers of the Knights Templar in the 17th century. Located less than a metre underground, they appear to be untouched structure. In its report, it said the caves appear to be used for black magic rites.
Interesting. Everything's connected. Remember what I said? So Paul Cook, I like him, but it's kind of obvious that the elites, they're trying to hide the flood and the biblical narrative, but he doesn't like to talk about that. He's more into the mainstream BS, like aliens and reptilian BS. I don't know what he's gonna be pushing. Maybe they're paying him to talk about that. Some of these channels, they grow up so big. But look, we got the best documentary channel, 666. And I think I want to click on, the Sumerians. So it was a good documentary. I did like it, but they were lying about some things. And we're gonna have to, we'll get into that, but we see how the ancient cultures, they were advanced.
Key Desert preserved the traces of the founders of the oldest known civilization.
And look at the writing, so advanced. Because the fallen angels came and actually taught them stuff. And you can actually see here, like, these trees are giant, and they're showing straight up, like, the Nephilim. The Nephilim, right? And remember I showed you that photo of the giants? Even that guy was even saying the Nephilim he even stated, if you go back in the video, you see the comment, he mentioned that those bones in that Italian Naples museum was from a Nephilim giant. And a Nephilim is a child from the fallen angels with a mortal woman. So all those ancient Greek, like Hercules, Zeus, Aphrodite, Wonder Woman, what's her name? You know, like Hera and all those names. They're all real people. Those are all real entities, real beings. Now the Nephilim, I think in the Bible stated they wouldn't have a soul because they were abominations to God, and He would not spare them. As were any abominations, any human animal hybrids or clones that were created by genetic or experimentations by the beings, the watchers who corrupted mankind. Now everything is connected, but I want to tell you that this documentary, they want you to think that these Mesopotamians. Well, first of all, I want to say that look at how this is somewhere in, I think, Pakistan? Is this somewhere in Pakistan? Oh yeah, look at this part. Alright.
They said to each other, "Come on, let's make bricks and bake them in the fire." And brick became stone and bitumen became cement. Then they said, "Let's go and build a city and a tower whose top touches the sky."
So they actually literally were trying to do that. And God watched them. He said, "Oh, they will do it if I don't intervene." Right?
Before the remains of the city of Ur.
Not that they could kill him, but
Early archaeologists must have been speechless. Before their eyes, the remains of houses, granaries, and temples. 5,000 years BC, this urban complex was home to 30.
Okay, so I want to tell you something. They want to tell you that this is the Tower of Babylon, but actually, they're wrong. The whole thing is the Tower of Babylon. The whole damn thing. And when they came and found it, it was just like a huge pile of rubble and dirt and dust and thousands of years of dust blowing over it. Just like the pyramids were mostly buried under sand. You could only see the tips of the heads of the Sphinx. But they want to tell you, oh no, this is just, they're primitive. No, man.
At the same time, people in the West were still living in the Stone Age.
Nope, that's BS. Because all over the world, I think even this whole world civilization spread till the Mayans, spread all over the world. They were trading. They were having a huge party that was against God. And look, they said they shaped the earth in their own image because they want to. This shows this channel's satanic, right? So they want to hide the biblical truth. And this clown too, who's Jewish. He's like French Jewish.
We don't always think about. They dominated nature to use it for their own survival.
Built to last using kiln-fired bricks coated with bitumen, Ur's ziggurat is impressive. Today, it is estimated that the construction of its base alone required the work.
So, the mainstream, they want to say it's impressive, but they don't want to admit how impressive. Because they want you to think that the ancestors were primitive and that we are advanced. Because they want you to think the constant thought of evolution, that we are advancing, that we are going to improve. And that they don't want you to think that, or if they do, they want you to think that aliens helped.
1,500 men
that other life was out there. That we can be like that other advanced life.
Over a period of 5 years. 20 kilometers away, farmers could see the residence of the god, their master.
So that would be King Nebuchadnezzar. And look, they want you to think. Here, I want to show you this animation they made. It's kind of funny. They want you to think that the people were like this. Like, you know, primitive cave people. From like the freaking dinosaur times. And like, people are thinking that, you know, dinosaurs could be either the abominations that the Nephilim the fallen angels made experiments, monsters. Because there was things like chimeras, Greek monsters, the ancient Greek myths. I just want to show you guys the ancient Greek kind of picture here. Something interesting. Because they're symbols. But the ancient Greeks, they loved philosophy. Now, philosophy is the love of thought. And they probably came to the same conclusion from all this thinking, right? That we are God, nothing is changing. It's a huge cycle of endless life suffering. So that they want to break the cycle. Same thing. So they have all these on their shields. You can kind of see. We see the kind of black and white. I guess maybe the modern day could have added these little things, because everything is the same. But the same things were it's kind of interesting that we see their shields have kind of the same or symbols of snakes, black and white, eyes, spirals. Because the pedophiles, they like to use spirals. They have demons too. Look at the demons straight up there. Owls. The owl is the animal of knowledge, occult knowledge, secret knowledge. The bull. They have bulls, rams, horned creatures. Look, spears, tridents, like the Greek gods. Doesn't Satan have a trident too, or a spear? Well, anyway. Black and white. Got some snake-headed demon Medusa stuff. So it looks pretty demonic, to be honest. But it's the same. Even the Greek flag, ancient Greek, is the same thing. It's wasn't it a lightning symbol? No. It was a lightning symbol. Liars. Well, look, this is just like America. Yeah, well, we see it. I know that they had, if you played Rome Total War, they had some original flags and stuff. They have a lightning one. The Greek one is like, they have a lightning symbol for their whole culture. Lightning is Satan, remember, like I said. And it could be either, the symbols could either also represent light. Look, the black and the white. Like a light, or light bearer, or lightning, anything to do with light. Sun, the sun, right? Illumination, illuminated. So these guys want you to think that these guys were living like in caves.
On the outskirts of the temple were the houses of scribes, masons, and carpenters.
Oh, and I thought it was funny that they want you to think masons were like, oh, they're just like carpenters, like just like workers, low level, peasants. They're not like kings, they're not like sorcerers, they're not like high level elites, right? But look, we see here, and it's so funny, look, you can see the quality of the gold craftsmen, and this is what these, because God doesn't want women to wear gold and adorn themselves like, to become like, looking like angels, but they want them to look like, angelic, godlike, because the fallen angels probably looked amazing. But God looks better, but I mean, whatever God makes is better than those traders, but I want you to see what the women actually wore. And they say, oh, this is just a maid's thing that she wore when she's going to die.
A braid of beech leaves covered their foreheads.
Dude, this is ornate and fancy, and this is not for her just to be buried. This is stuff like, this is how she would look, the best of the best at any event, at any fancy party. This is how she would look. So, and she was a maid, dude. Now imagine how the actual like high level people looked.
Attached to the back of the head, an ornament.
So don't BS me. I'm not stupid.
Above the face. The gold used for crockery and weapons for parades, silver, lapis lazuli, or turquoise.
Okay, so this is a movie, but this is with Gerard Butler, and it's called Gods of Egypt. It's pretty much a movie that they're pretty much just telling the truth about history, but about the fallen angels, but who came here to be worshipped. But I want to show you, this is pretty much how these ancient cultures look like when the fallen angels were here. Except these fallen angels, they didn't look as weak as these human people look. They were like giant and powerful, probably glowing with gold and all this like stones, precious stones all over their body, probably, like, because they wanted to look as fancy and as ornate as possible. But it's interesting that since these elites hate God, they always want to have scenes of like just kill God. They want to kill God, so it's always a symbol in their media, as I talk about all the time on this channel.
What have you accomplished? Fight me.
Father, don't. Stay out of this, son.
Why? In 1,000 years of peace, what have you accomplished? A land of people who dream of nothing more. It's my turn now.
I won't fight. I love you.
1,000 years of peace is nothing for him. I think he's probably a god of war, right? And he's like telling the gods to bow down to him. But this is how fancy these old societies were.
I, Set, shall be your one true king. King of all Egypt. Behold the
Ancient Egypt. That's why the Bible, this is nothing good came from Egypt. Just this old ancient mystery religions.
Those who stand in my way. Gods, bow before me or die.
Anyway, basically, I just want to show you that. Just look at this part. This part's interesting too. Watch.
However, at the beginning of the 20th century, archaeologists discovered the stone of Hammurabi, king of Babylon, in the Persian city of Susa. The Elamites, who had ravaged Mesopotamia in the 12th century BC, had taken it as a trophy. In 1694
cool.
BC, Hammurabi had the code that bears his name drawn up, a compendium of all Sumerian laws.
It's like a lot of knowledge there.
Articles engraved in stone deal with every.
But then, okay, they want to say that these cultures are older than the Bible, but that's not true, and I'll explain it in a second here.
Such as commercial transactions, marriage, and inheritance. As a judge, the king diligently investigated and protected individuals from the abuses of civil servants and oversaw major public works. The Hammurabi Code proves that the Sumerians were forerunners in many fields. On the back of the stone, Article 196 of the Code warns, if a man gouges another man's eye, then his eye must be gouged out.
That's from the old law.
A famous adage that inspired the Bible.
Okay, so I want to stop him right there because this is a satanic show. They want to just tell you guys that the Bible is not the real deal. Now, and this clown, I think he starts mocking, he starts saying, oh, and he kind of says it in this bastard here again. I kind of want to snap him in his jaw, but he starts saying, oh yeah, our culture is just really, really touched by these old religions, Abrahamic religions. Like, he says it in almost like a bad way. But the thing is that these places, and even Hinduism, they want to say that these are older than Christianity, older than the Bible, but that's not true. And I'll tell you why. Because the history of the world is that God created the world, and then he created Adam and Eve, and then Adam and Eve spread out, so everyone knew about God. Even though the fallen angels came to corrupt man, God, he was able to correct it. It's not like it was a mistake. He knew everything would happen. It's just the way it's supposed to be, the way it was meant to be, right? But anyway, the flood happened, and he's essentially everyone still knows God. Noah, he teaches them, spread out. Oh, and then after that, the new nations form, and then they start rediscovering the old mystery Babylon, and start doing the rituals, and start relearning from sorcery, and start doing astrology, and start doing psychic, and conjuring, and all this dark stuff and psychedelic stuff and learning stuff, forbidden knowledge that brought them to these conclusions again. And then they're saying, that life is infinite. The life is times eons instead of 6,000 years old and infinite cycles. But really, that's not true, because before the oral tradition of the Jewish people was spoken, because the tribe of Israel kept the oral tradition and the laws, and then they were God's chosen people because they were the ones who would keep all the laws and do His work. And then, they did falter from time to time, but God always found a way to bring them back. And then Jesus Christ was born into that group of people. God chose to be born in the most humble. He didn't come in the form of a king. He came in the form of a humble person, because God is humble. And God said He will abase anyone who is prideful and lift anyone who is humble. So practice being humble. But anyway, I want to talk about ancient Hinduism. So this is from Buddhism too, but who's Brahma? So Brahma is essentially the creator. He essentially is the source that everything springs from. So I was talking about how they believe that God is essentially not like a god, but some kind of energy. And they said, let's see here, blah blah blah. So Buddhism came after Hinduism. So Hinduism was first, then Buddhism. And although I think Buddhism is a little bit safer, it still has the same core philosophy that we are God. But I want to talk about first, so I've taken in my experiences a lot of psychedelics. I used to work at a psychedelics dispensary for a short time in my life, but I learned a lot there about reality. And if you are open to taking those, you'd have to pray, and you'd have to be safe and learn about it first, right? But basically, my experiences on dimethyltryptamine is essentially, DMT is essentially a chemical that the body makes in the pineal gland, which is in the forehead, which a lot of things like chemicals and stuff that are in our everyday life are designed to calcify, and stuff they put in the drinking water right here, designed to calcify that gland. I think that gland, it secretes small amounts of DMT that actually help you kind of connect to the creator and have a more spiritual in tune, with yourself and with nature and with everything around you, and to help you be more aligned, raise your vibration, align your frequency and vibration, but it's not like we can manifest things, because they teach this stuff, and basically if you believe that, then you'll join their group and they'll lift you up. But that's Satan, right? But God doesn't do that. He teaches you to be a better person, and if you listen to Him, I believe He will bless you. But it's interesting that there are entities that you see sometimes or feel the presence of when you're on these psychedelics, because the spiritual realm, these psychedelics break down the spiritual realm. And I've taken them multiple times, and they've taught me the same thing, like a monistic, pantheistic, nihilistic, that I am God, and that's like an infinite cycle. And I was really actually shook, because I remember it shook my faith when I did that. But I remember the Bible teaches that you don't go off by what you feel, but by what you think and what you know. In the Bible, and feelings can easily be manipulated by higher level intelligent demons and spirits. And although these psychedelics help you become more loving and forgiving, and emotionally heal yourself, and connect to a spirituality or a higher power, I think they help me connect to God. But they essentially are risky, because these evil spirits / demons can torture you or affect you, or you can maybe be worse things that could happen that I don't know of, right? But for me, I actually smoked DMT powder, and most of the time I used a vape pen. And the times I did it, there were times where I would just see the whole world was like different. It was like a different realm. You would go to a different place, and I would feel the presence of something else. And actually, a few times I felt a friendly presence, but after this presence turned malevolent and actually jumped into me, into my body. I'm not even kidding you. It jumped into my body, and I was like twitching, and I felt like, okay, this thing's in my body. I feel really uncomfortable, and I felt like violated. So I think what happens at these things, they try to teach you this belief, but if you are like prepared and if you are like protected, then these spirits will actually attack you and make you feel depressed or try to scare you or something, or trip you out in some bad trip. But if you could have angels though, and they're protecting you too though. I've felt the presences of angels in times. Now, what's the most profound thing? Yeah, I've seen different realms. Like, it's just hard to explain, but you can see fractal kind of imagery, but you can see that this society kind of promotes psychedelics and New Age, which all leads to the Kabbalistic tree of life. Same thing. But let's see what this video talks about, the DMT entities.
Have an actual reality and presence to them. Psychedelic entities are autonomous fragments of psychic energy that have temporarily escaped the controlling power of the ego.
In other words, these entities are like pieces of your mind that have slipped out from under your usual self-control. These entities...
Okay, so I don't think that they're actually just like part of your mind. What they say is like, these guys are saying, oh yeah, that all these entities are just actually parts of you, and that, but then they're like saying that there's like a lot of people who are seeing the same things. So then maybe there's like a conscious hive mind of all of us that we're sharing, that some kind of experience, we have some kind of shared experience, but I think they're actually literally beings.
These are independent from our conscious will and operate beyond our normal waking consciousness. Terence suggests that these entities may be part of ourselves, our fears, desires, or other psychic elements that remain
And some honestly, something that I went through were, like, I kind of wanted to see the machine elves, but I felt from the experience I had, it was scary for me to go back into it. Great, I have to watch this ad.
Just mere hallucinations, but have an actual reality and presence to them. Psychedelic entities
ourselves. Our fears, desires, and other psychic elements remain under the radar of our ego's control. When the ego's usual boundaries dissolve under the influence of DMT,
fucking piece of shit, man. They're trying to stop.
You are absolutely insane. The biggest opportunity.
Shut up. Fucking retard.
These fragments can manifest vividly, gaining a form and a voice. The notion that these entities have escaped the controlling power of our ego points to the idea that under normal circumstances, our ego filters and interprets our perception of reality. It helps maintain a sense of order and continuity. Psychedelics like DMT temporarily weaken the ego's grip, allowing a flood of raw, unprocessed psychic content to the surface. This can explain why these experiences often feel more real than reality itself, presenting novel perspectives.
Okay, so this guy's he's actually part of the group, and he's trying to actually mislead people. Look, because he does this in the beginning. But first, we gotta watch this from our paid sponsor. Take a break from our paid. No, a brief message from our paid sponsor for the video. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so we see here kind of like the same star. We got the 6-sided hexagon, right? And then we see here this goof he does.
Out of all the psychedelic compounds and spiritual practices, only one has this level.
He does the 666, and it's very plainly obvious to show that he's part of the group doing Satan's will, which is his lies. But I want to show you also here, this part here, which is very interesting too. He says that a lot of people, he does it again, just to make sure that we got the message right.
Participants. The results at the time were unexpected. Strassman
estimated
that a whopping half of the participants in the studies of high doses of DMT.
This is a trippy picture, but this is like artwork that people, it's like, if you go to these psychedelic stores, there's like a lot of this artwork is comment theme, like you're leaving your body, and actually this is exactly what I kind of felt was happening to me, and it's so strange what happens, but it's kind of made me nervous what I would see, right, because I do believe they're real, right, and sometimes I was quite aware of them like messing with me or actually being hating me, you know what I mean? But anyway, what he's going to say is something here interesting. The people actually describe these things.
Reported experiences of alternative worlds, and that contact with alien beings or entities were a variant of this category. The most popular descriptive words for these entities in this particular 2020 study were being.
Okay, so they're called, the people called them, and I think this is mostly negative, beings, guides, spirits, aliens, helpers, angels, elves, religious persons, plant spirit, fairy, chemical spirit, animal spirit, a clown, demon, gnome, monster, a dead family person, a member, a devil, unknown deceased person, deceased friend, other. I think, dude, this is mostly negative, dude. And they might say that, oh, the being is the highest percentage, but just seeing the number of these things that they could say it's a devil or a clown or trust me, it's probably a demon. I think they're just demons. And from, like, I have personal experience with DMT, and when I was working there, I would talk to people about their experiences, and some of the experiences were telling me were trippy, but basically in Brazil, they have, like, Peru is below Brazil, but basically you could probably find ayahuasca anywhere down there, and ayahuasca is liquid DMT, but with a inhibitor, like a tea that you drink that inhibits the breakdown of the DMT, so it lasts hours instead of like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So we've already watched that one. Okay, so basically Brahma, I was kind of looking into, like, because I do believe that these beings, I think they must be fallen angels. Like, and if you look at Hinduism, some of their like rituals, they look very demonic. So and they actually admit they do pray to demons. That's why they have like blood dripping out of their mouth and all these like weird kind of like things they put on themselves because it's demonic. They're actually worshiping demons. Now Buddhism sprung out after that, but I was looking at the Buddhist view on DMT, and this person says this: the people who take it claim spiritual breakthroughs, including visions of the oneness of everything, ego death, which I've experienced on. I recommend NN-DMT, which is the more common one, but 5-MeO is the more powerful ego death one, and that one's very powerful. Secret knowledge on nature and of life itself. Now, magic mushrooms, there are some things that you can get like information from. Sometimes you figure out people about, like, you figure out the actual intentions of other people in your past or around you. But I mean, God, reading the Bible will give you way more knowledge and wisdom in a safer way, right? But look, and significant various spiritual entities taking on many forms. Some are seemingly beneficial, and some seemingly horrifying that harass/possess people. These entities are often called machine elves because they appear to be made constant of transforming geometry like a machine. Interesting. Now, I felt the presence of one. I didn't see it, but the person I was with, he saw them, and I was kind of like, but he was like on the opposite vibe of me. He was more evil. He was pretty much on the evil side. Anyway, so let's look at this one. I thought it was very interesting, this 5-minute video.
Hinduism prescribes honesty, refraining from injuring living beings, patience, self-restraint, virtue, and compassion, among others. Hindu practices include ritual,
such
as worship, recitation, and meditation. Its earliest known
And they hold their hands. Do you see that in 666? Just like this Buddha. Because it's all connected, like I was talking about. Because all the ancient elite royal cultures, they all are doubling the same thing. Because Satan is teaching these people the same lies.
In the Indus Valley civilization, with
In
which
Pakistan.
shares some religious practices, including ritual
And
bathing,
the Punjabs too.
sacrifices, and goddess worship. The Vedic period is so named for the composition of the 4 Vedas, considered timeless divine revelations composed in Sanskrit, the
Beautiful
primary
writing.
language of Hinduism. The Rig Veda is the oldest, largest, and arguably most important Veda, composed of more than 1,000 poetic hymns and focused significantly on the pantheon of gods.
So they believe in multiple gods.
On an interconnected universe with a single unifying force behind an otherwise diverse cosmos.
Sound similar? Does that sound similar? Right? The Greeks, ancient Greeks believe the same thing. Ancient Egyptians. The religion of Thoth. Probably Scientology believes in this nonsense too.
That Brahman is the ultimate source of everything.
Brahman, yeah.
It is not worshipped
Brahma
by
and
God
Buddhism.
and is not understood as a single deity. Instead, all male deities are thought to individually reflect the multiple aspects of Brahman. A Rig Veda hymn dedicated to the creator god turned Brahma is thought to be the origin of the caste system, as it introduced the 4 social classes of Hinduism.
Okay, so like I was saying, these beings came and taught the case. They taught people this case system. So people weren't allowed to like even associate with one another.
Originated from distinct body parts of Brahma. Priests from the mouth, nobles from the arms, commoners from the thighs, and servants from the feet.
To teach that we are all part of this one being, you know what I mean?
According to the Vedas, to make life meaningful, Hindus should pursue 4 goals simultaneously.
Okay, listen to their four noble goals in their life.
Generating and distributing wealth,
Generating and distributing wealth.
indulging
Okay.
in pleasure and
Indulging in pleasures.
seeking emotional fulfillment,
The emotional fulfillment, I guess, would be
pursuing liberation and release by not
liberation and release. That sounds kind of like Satanism.
being overly attached to anything, and being socially responsible by following a code of ethics and duties, which is the Dharma.
So pretty much indulge in whatever you want. That's
Widely regarded as the most authoritative book on Hindu law, the Manusmriti
Now listen to this,
elaborates
watch.
the Dharma and prescribes them to each of the 4 varnas or castes, justifying therefore the caste system as the basis of social order. Related to the Dharma is the fundamental concept of karma, according to which virtuous acts.
So, I do believe that if you give, you will receive. Like, I do believe in energy to that respect, but karma, it does teach that, if this person's living poorly, that they are evil and they did something in their past life and they deserve it. So it's not true, because there is evil in the world and there are demons that can actually harass people. Like, if they see, they can gang stalk you and they can block you if you don't know how to, if you talk too much, or if you are around the wrong people, or if you do the wrong things, they can attack you, literally. So there is a spiritual realm that but I don't believe in karma per se. Like, I believe in some kind of divine karma, because that's God doing his own mysterious way of revenge, right? And God works in mysterious ways and blesses people and punishes others, but that's what I believe. I believe God is separate. I don't believe we are God.
Actions always receive good consequences and vice versa. Reincarnation is key to Hinduism.
And this one, reincarnation is also a problem too, because it does promote that, we can get it right the next time, that we can just do whatever. And I know we can lower ourselves into a lower state, but essentially it is teaching that we have other chances. In reality, we have one chance to know God, and he's just trying to see who you will choose to be evil, to know evil, or to know good, because he's going to separate the evil from the good eventually at the end of time.
Karma is thought to operate not only in this lifetime, but
Okay,
also
listen to
in
this. This is very
lifetimes,
fascinating.
meaning that one's future lives and the caste in which they may be will be conditioned by actions performed during one's present life, which itself has been conditioned by the actions performed in previous lives.
So you can be a higher level being.
Hinduism also include the two very long epic poems, Ramayana and Mahabharata. They elaborated on the deities and doctrines introduced in the Vedas and were partially based on historical events that took
Probably
place
real
in
beings.
ancient Hindu kingdoms. The first official Hindu temples were built during this Puranic period and were dedicated.
Oh, but I heard a lot of like bells, playing bells, like these prayer bells in these cultures. They actually, bells are really good for like bad spirits and stuff. So all these old churches had these bells, but they started taking them out in the West too.
To significant Hindu deities such as Vishnu the protector and Shiva the destroyer of the universe.
So just a cycle, right?
5th century India was a time of significant religious and philosophical reform. In response to what was perceived as the failure of Hinduism to address the needs of people.
Did you hear that? So because Hinduism failed the people, they created Buddhism.
Many schools of thought developed, including Buddhism, led by Siddhartha Gautama, who had been a
Because Hinduism is selfish. Hinduism is just indulge in yourself and enjoy life. And if you have a bad life, it's your own problem because you fucked up. That's pretty much what it's saying.
Although it is often referred to as an offshoot of Hinduism, Buddhism rejects the Hindu caste system and abandons its strict.
I agree with that. But again, a lot of things he's teaching, they already were said by God already. Like, God was already teaching them to the Jewish people a long time ago. Okay, guys, so last thing I want to show you guys, just to show you last thing here, how advanced these sites are, is that, and how these people are actually talking about how advanced these things are. Like, watch. So, first of all, actually, I want to show you this documentary, the actual picture, the emblem. So we just can we inspect that? Ombio. So this picture, at a first glance, you might not know what it is. No one would know what it is. But since I'm always aware, I know what this is. This is the black and white. This is the demiurge. This is the being, the one God, the source. They think that, and everything sprouts from it. The snakes. This is the same thing. The Medusa, the squid. This is the same thing. Everything sprouts from it. The octopus. The spiral, the blending, the repetitions, the spiral, the cycles, right?
Vega wrote about in his commentary.
Okay, look. So this is Peru, and the conquistadors came. They were evil people, but they were pretty much elites who were come to civilize these, like, Mayan people, right? But the Mayan culture were they were very, I guess they were close, they were in tune with nature. I think they were very smart with mathematics, architecture, and astronomy, and probably astrology too. And the wandering planets are actually some type of fallen angel, or angels that are not listening to God. And these occultists who run the world, they use astrology by studying something to do with the wandering planets, and they use that too, and something to do with energy. They know something about energy to make money. They use that stuff to make money, or to do events, but they do the rituals too, blood rituals and stuff like that. But you can just search about the Hollywood satanic rituals if you're into that. But basically, God used these evil people to pretty much bind evil people, because the Mayans were slaving people out. Even in the movie that Mel Gibson made, which was really good, Mayan movie, Apocalypto, but it was pretty much saying the same thing, that what you do unto others comes back to you. Like, the Mayan people were sacrificing people to their gods for the harvest, but then it made them sick, because their killing was making them sick of disease, more killing. And then, since they were slaving people out, the conquistadors came to slave them, and then God used them to push the religion of God, of the Bible. Even though these evil Europeans in these times, they use religion just like the Romans to create a fake church and fake, like, to for power. Like, they taught good things, but in the 1400s and stuff like that, a lot of people still, they knew God, but the elites were always the ones in power who were always, like, using that to control them, right? And as soon as man started like experimenting, finding free technology, free energy, they would like make laws and saying you can't do this or you can't do that, or monopolize the technology, take it over, kill someone to take over. Anyway, this guy, he's like one of these elites that came over, the conquistadors, explorers, whatever. And he was noticing, he's not stupid. He was saying this stuff must have been made with sorcery.
De los Incas in the 17th century. It's impossible to imagine the proportions of this endeavor until you see it. After a laborious study and a close examination of the stones used in the construction, one can't help but believe that sorcery must have been involved in the construction process. So outstanding is the impression that they make. Could it really be demons who created it and not people?
Yep. Could have been the fallen angels, could have been giants, could have been the Nephilim, but someone with advanced knowledge built these things, and they were either more bigger or powerful, or they had advanced knowledge.
Sacsayhuaman consists of 3 layers of zigzag walls made of megaliths, large boulders weighing dozens or even hundreds of tons. Sacsayhuaman also encompasses a lot of other buildings and constructions that stretch along a vast territory. It is believed that the main construction job was done in the middle of the 15th century during the reign of Inca Pachacutec. Unfortunately, it is impossible to make a definite statement as to how the site looked like in ancient times. For the Spanish,
they don't know when it was built. They're just guessing.
16th century, the destruction of Sacsayhuaman was somewhat a symbol of the victory of the kingdom of God over paganism.
Dude, that's fucked.
Of European civilization over Indian barbarism.
Dude, those conquistadors are so evil, dude. They killed so many freaking people. Just a few guys with guns killed so many people. One sec, let's just watch this for a second.
The precision and accuracy with which the boulders and the walls were fit to each other is mesmerizing, and it is considered by many people to be unrivaled even today. In the spots where the masonry was disturbed, one can see that it's impossible to squeeze a sheet of paper in between the boulders. Even more, it is impossible to even notice joint. The method of Sacsayhuaman's construction was perplexing, not only for the medieval chroniclers. The above-mentioned Garcilaso de la Vega even wanted to notarize the size of the boulders so that people in the medieval Spain would believe his stories about Sacsayhuaman, but for the modern architects and archaeologists as well. For the latter, it remains unfathomed how it was possible to transport these blocks of stones and to fit them at such non-linear surfaces. The Incas knew no wheels, no draft animals, and there is no evidence of jack levers or any other devices facilitating the work with such heavy weights. By the time the Spaniards arrived there, the Incas were no longer building anything.
Oh yeah, and the ancient Babylonians, they created the wheel.
Construction methods mentioned nothing else but manual labor, the magical assistance of the
There's another thing I want to show you.
wish of the stone to be transported.
So basically, their cuttings are so precise.
Performing on the biggest stage in the world was just one step in my journey. Hi, I'm Ron.
Could be that of a big single complex where the Incas worshipped the sun. This construction was also believed to be the dwelling for the guardian gods, heavenly deities living in the material world. Beside this version, Sacsayhuaman being a ritual complex, there are plenty of other hypotheses, starting from simple domestic ones.
This is where they did like rituals.
Food, a water tower, a defensive fortress.
But the point is, these things were cut so precise.
Processed with high quality. The remnants of andesite stones can still be found in the area.
Oh yeah, and there's one stone that actually starts ringing. Like, he tops it.
Sometimes the andesite blocks are also found inside the destroyed walls, but the archaeologists have no explanation.
So I think in that case, I think that the culture. Oh, they're saying that maybe the Mayans came and just started living there. because the Mayans came after from the land bridge, right? After the flood, spread of mankind, they crossed the land bridge, spread in North America, right? Actually, some people think they just crossed the ocean, which I think is possible too. But look at this, actually. Look at this strange, look, it's like someone was just practicing. They came here. How are they cutting this stone out of the stone?
For the large number of hollows on its
Look.
surface. It is said
What
that
is
this
this?
is exactly the rock that the Incas attempted to move once many years ago. It is called the Tired Stone, and it killed thousands of Indians during its fall. When the stone
Weird.
fell down, it barred the entrance to a dungeon that was worshipped by the Incas. Hence, the Inca cut out a new entrance and steps in the mountain. Their remains are still well visible.
Weird.
It is hard to say what transportation technologies were used by the Incas when they were moving the rocks weighing several thousand tons, or even if it took place at all. But the separate stones or rocks, which originally were not from here.
So remember, all the old sayings are true. All those ancient old sayings, those old wise sayings, those old legends, all of them are real. But there are some fake, like, myths and legends that, like, example, aliens from outer space, but like Ball Earth, Bigfoot, because they want to make you think that evolution, that we evolved from monkeys, but that's not true. But it's like a pattern, and once you see the pattern, you can't. There's no way that you can actually go back, because you know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and the truth is you can't destroy the truth.
Neighborhood in the form of the Huacas. A Huaca is any site that the Incas associated with a manifestation of superior power.
Manifestation.
To them
Power.
often belong the stones and rocks with the cuts on their surface. The Indian legends and the Spanish chronicles often give a detailed description of the interaction between the Indians and the natural forces via these Huacas. This is what Garcilaso de la Vega wrote in his chronicles. It, the Huaca, denotes a sacred object. Anything could be such an object. Anything through what the devil could speak to a person. Among Huacas, there were idols.
So okay, see how this show does that? This is how the devil, he does it. He tells the truth right to your face.
Stones or trees where the enemy of man penetrated, so that to make people believe that he was the god itself. The name Huaca.
Exactly. It's just
through what the devil could speak to a person.
Listen.
Among Huacas, there were idols, rocks, huge stones, or trees where the enemy of man penetrated, so that to make people believe that he was the god itself.
See?
The name Huaca
He's telling us the truth right there.
to any temple, be it a small or a large one.
Okay, now remember, ancient civilizations, they are, first of all, more advanced in mathematics and astronomy and architecture than us. Moving stones larger than we can't even do today. Cutting in ways that we can't cut. And they're telling us these stories, and we're going to tell, and they're telling us, first of all, that there are beings that came from heaven, and also that the earth is a realm. And then we're going to say that they're wrong? How arrogant are we?
To the corners inside the houses from which the devil...
Sorry, just Occam raises the whole reality. Occam raises reality.
To the priests and other people who communicated with him in a friendly manner. Another chronicler of Indian origin, Goman Poma, at the end of the 16th century wrote that through Huacas, the Incas would come to know about the location of silver, gold, and other mines. This is what he wrote about some of the Incan kings.
So they would go to these sites that these... So basically the angels came, carved out... They came to a mountain. I think there are some places like on the earth where basically the fallen angels fell onto a mountain. But they probably landed... some of them landed maybe on the lakes. Like, I think they gathered on a mountain, but when they fell, they probably landed on lakes and stuff. A lot of lakes are made probably from the fallen angels falling into them. And after the flood filled those holes with water. But they landed, and then after they started carving out places for thrones to sit on and get people to worship them, showing the humans what they could do, and then they were worshipped, right? Teaching them forbidden knowledge, corrupting them.
Tupac, Inca.
But I thought it was interesting how he said Tupac, just like, Tupac. Because these elites use music, and they always reference stuff from the old world too. Oh, sundials. They could have easily had a watch, because they could have easily just made a mini sundial and strapped it to their wrist. They definitely had watches back in the day. I know it. Anyway, so they said that these wakas, these sites, which is where the gods would sit, is where they would be told where to go get gold, or where to dig for. Interesting, because they needed gold to adorn themselves with, because these guys wanted to make themselves like living in heaven. Heaven is shiny and bright. So they said, okay, well, we're going to find gold and emeralds and shit like that.
Bear the name of Viracocha were about to come to this land already during the reign of Huayna Capac, or straight after it, so that to rule on behalf of a single and great...
Oh, this guy's interesting. Listen.
It was said that only the idol of Paria Kaka responded to him, and it told that there was little time left for the talks and for the reign of the Incas, since the people who bear the name of Viracocha were about to come to this land already during the reign of Huayna Capac, or straight after it, so that to rule on behalf of a single and great idol, which they would bring with them.
So did you hear that? So basically this being that was ruling over them told them, yo, the white people are coming to enslave you. There's nothing, our talks are done. Your time is done to be ruled. Didn't you hear? Because they knew that basically they had to have this happen because they wanted to set up the system. Because the Europeans were going to do that, yeah. So he's going to use God. He used the Christians. He used the church to actually help. Well, the Catholic Vatican Church to spread it. Because the Catholic is actually the Roman Empire hid in the Vatican. Created the Vatican to hide into it.
In this region, there are many
Rome never died.
Or large rocks scattered around and densely covered with the various hollows made on a strongly eroded surface.
And you're like, what could this be?
The cutouts and hollows have very diverse shapes, from the most primitively processed hollows and up to the geometrically calibrated ones.
Oh yeah, and it's like, it looks like it's for like someone said technology. This part too, so they said, it looks like it's for technology, the layout of this.
In fact, a very big ritual complex dedicated to the sun.
Look.
We are now standing at the top of the mountain, where a fortress is erected. We can see a part of the building itself, as well as the remains of the walls and foundations. In a description of the chroniclers, Cieza de Leon, Sarmiento de Gamboa, and Garcilaso de la Vega, this is deemed to be the foundation for the three towers. Most likely this circle...
Oh, what the hell is that?
Then polished wall.
What the fuck is that? How do you do that? Oh yeah, they built these like the places in the mountains. Like it would be impossible for a normal like people of civilization to do that, to carry those stones up into the mountain. Why? Why? Get this. Oh yeah, Eastar. Eastar is Ishtar. It's so funny. Everything's connected. Easter is actually the celebration of Ishtar with the bunny instead of about Jesus Christ. The resurrection of Jesus Christ. And also, I believe Jesus' birthday was in April. Early April. Either April Fools, between April 1st to April 15th. I just want to search something. Because it kind of has to do with this. So in this video game, this is a video game that the creator from Devil May Cry, which is so funny because I talk about how that game is so like a reverse. Like you're playing as a half demon, half human, whose father was a demon, who sacrificed himself to save humanity. And there are churches all around this demon anime world that honor this demon's names. And then, yeah, you're pretty much playing like Demon Jesus. You're pretty much playing as the Antichrist, okay? You have used demon powers to fight demons, but it's just like every anime, right? But anyway, this guy, he makes this. One of the devs make this game called. What the hell is this fucking game called? How could I forget this name? Oh, El Shaddai. And I made this video when I was starting my channel, but I was kind of linking that stars could be angels, and I do believe that now. And in the game, you're playing as Enoch, who is tasked to go to Earth from heaven to go bind the fallen angels, the Watchers, who are actually creating like a little fake paradise in a tower on Earth and having like their own party and creating their own realities. So they stole the fruits of heaven, and you're tasked to go back and get them. So teaching mankind how to use weapons, stuff like that. It's kind of a cool game actually. But the thing is that in real life, God sent the angels to bind the fallen ones and put them in chains of darkness underground. So the earthquakes could be caused because of them writhing in anger. There's one said to be under the Euphrates River that's actually drying up. According to prophecy, it's actually all coming to pass because the river is drying up.
The time in the world.
But basically, you're looking for
something about you.
You're sent to Earth in this game. You live for hundreds of years, but it's like, why is this guy always referencing the Bible if it's not true?
In fact, all the time.
Now, the thing is, this game also blends lies, because in the end, you meet a character named Ishtar. And like I was saying, Ishtar is actually a goddess in Babylon, the goddess of the world, which is probably Sophia. So, because Lucifer Satan is a temporary god of this world that God allowed to have power temporarily. So that, because it's all according to his plan, he knows that he's gonna rebel.
It does not take
So you're looking for a tower. Oh yeah, here.
I bet they're still close by.
He says this is where they fell, and it's like showing these ponds, these lakes. Remember, everything, they have to tell the truth. Satan has to disclose his plans.
So this is where they fell. I bet they're still close by.
I come from the tower.
You don't know when to quit.
And then here he finds the tower. Shit. That's called pride. Doesn't even help. I think I did that a long time ago. Anyway, so let's see. Yeah, I don't think liking your videos doesn't count. It doesn't even matter.
It only took you 300 years.
Plus, anyway, since I'm a truther, my channel will be buried, and only specific people who God thinks will understand this will find these videos. So anyway, let's just finish up the video here and look at the last part, because they select specific rocks that actually are able to actually ring. But I want to see this part.
And a fluted floor.
Oh, that's tripped out. How do they do that?
The cuts were made by a tool resembling a modern hatchet applied for plastic materials, with the width of the razor around 2 millimeters. Cuts are made along the line, but in a rather negligent manner, not caring too much about their accuracy and similarity of the cells. The tool sometimes crosses the furrow from one edge to the other.
What if it was
Close
cut
to it, there's
or
another
wet or
interesting
dry?
processed land site. It is treated with the same method, 2 cuts inside of each deepening. The site represents 4 regular diamonds traversed by a hollow going around the rock shelf. However, even more unusual traces are available. In Sacsayhuaman, at the western side of the Lake Kocha, there's an amazing stone, the processing style of which is significantly different from all other stones in the area. The surface erosion is normal for limestone.
Strange.
But at the same time, if we look at it more attentively, we can see that the traces of processing in this case resemble more of a ductile plastic material processing, unless the constructors were trying to imitate such treatment with the help of the lapidary technology.
I'm just trying to look for that part where...
Such traces can be easily made with fingers on the unhardened clay.
It's here.
Having conducted the experiment on processing at a nearby does not explain how one can achieve such accuracy with big megaliths consisting of solid yet fragile material, as the local limestone is, where the surface of one block is almost an identical copy. One can also see the signs of a sort of blurring of the material with the subsequent hammering of it. One could assume that part of these traces appeared on the stone during the decoration of the stone with golden hand. The larger stone markings. Such tracks appear after.
Anyway guys, thank you guys for watching. God bless you and your families. Peace.